Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order tonight's school committee meeting for September 17th, 2019. I'm going to change the order of our presentations, and Jim Hardy is going to come after the summer program update. And we are also going to table the vote to approve CPS handbook. So with those amendments and table, may I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So, comments from the public tonight? Tracy, can you please come down so the audience viewing from home can see you and hear you? This microphone is hooked up, correct?
Yep, should be.
At the podium. Thank you, Tracy.
Tracy Malu, parent and teacher, and I just wanted to share a couple reflections at the workshop of 2 weeks prior. I was happy to see some healthy debate, which I took as healthy. I would just like to remind the committee, or hope, that as you go through and hammer out and finalize your goals, that it is kids that are first, because some of that debate as an observer I felt like was more about how does it reflect on me as an individual. And as I was listening to the discussion go on, I felt like we were starting to lose sight of kids. And I appreciated the comment that we don't celebrate our kids in our schools enough, and that I would encourage you all, no matter what your role, to attend as many events, no matter what your hat. And just remember that no matter what is going on in our schools, we need to put kids first, and I'm not always getting a sense that that is what's happening here. So I just wanted to say thank you for the debate that was happening, and to follow up on that in the evidence of that particular goal, which I think was the second bullet. I would like to see if you would encourage press to attend more events outside of sporting events. We get a lot of coverage for our Whaler sports, and in my experience, little to none on academic. It's very rare. I grew up in a town that had 8 or 9 elementary schools and a daily local paper, and even when I go home to visit my parents, every single issue has something going on in the schools, whether it's a preschool picture of sorting cubes to a high school awards banquet and everything in between. Every single issue of the local paper press is invited, and something is being covered, even in the summer months. And that does not happen here, and I think that would help your meeting that number 2 goal of evidence of how to improve public relations.
Thank you so much, Tracy. Thank you. Did you get a note there, David? Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, please. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Alice Crowley, and I am reading a letter because I am speaking on behalf of the Nantucket Teachers Association. I am a 7th grade math teacher at Cyrus Pierce Middle School, and I am also co-president of the Nantucket Teachers Association. My co-president, Paige Martineau, could not be here tonight due to a scheduling issue. When we saw that the CPS schedule was on tonight's school committee agenda, we felt it was important that you hear from the teachers, our staff's point of view. Please do not take our comments as being directed at any one person or any group of people, specifically our CPS administration. We do truly not understand how August 26th, the first day for teachers, came about without CPS having a schedule for our staff and our students. Priority number 1 this July should have been a schedule. This was a known issue. In fact, we had a scheduling committee comprised of representatives from each team, as well as administrators, working on possible schedule models during the last school year. None of them were contacted in the summer for help with the final schedule. When our staff left school at the end of our in-service days, the CPS staff was panicked. After 4 full days, we were still without schedules. and we had no time to prepare for the students walking through the doors the following Tuesday. When it became increasingly clear on that Friday that the schedule was not going to be ready for Tuesday, CPS staff members and administration shifted our attention to creating a plan to buy more time for administration to create a staff and student schedule that worked. The idea of Whaler Welcome Week came about. Staff planned activities to engage students, promote problem solving, and build community within our school. Our hope was that once a schedule was created, it would not have to change, so that our students would be given one schedule that would work for the entire year. Yes, we are well aware that there's always going to be some individual issues, but having to reprint all student schedules should not have to happen. Unfortunately, our 7th and 8th graders were given a schedule our last block on Thursday, September the 5th, only to be given a revised schedule first thing Friday morning, September the 6th. Many of our students and staff are still getting revised schedules. Now I feel that we need to take a moment to shout out our amazing CPS staff. Through all of this, we have met students with smiles, hugs, and high fives. We've established classroom routines and norms, and we have begun teaching our curricula. We've gone above and beyond. Despite all of this, our entire staff was called in last Wednesday afternoon during our extended workday and accused of being negative on social media. We were told, quote, the central office has been made aware of CPS staff posting negatively on social media, but we have no proof. This honestly was a slap in the face. First, if there is a social media issue, please address it directly with the person or people responsible. Don't blame our entire staff. Secondly, if there is no proof, do not address it at all. We strongly encourage you to check our CPS teachers who are on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, as we are constantly sharing all the great things that are happening at CPS. In closing, we at CPS continue to hear this will never happen again, and we realize the extenuating circumstances that partially have caused this. However, we just keep asking, when will this year be settled? And can we honestly say that we have done all we can do in the best interest of our students and staff for this school year? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Alice. Any more comments from the public? Okay, we're going to move on to presentations and discussions of interest to the committee. On to the summer program update.
Hello.
Hi,
We're going to talk about the summer programs this year. I'm Andrea Marr. I was the director of the Title I and ESY Extended School Year programs.
I'm Samantha Kodak. I am an ESL teacher at the elementary school, and this summer I was the coordinator for the first program that was EL Summer Enrichment this year.
So I'm going to start off by talking about all the programs, and there'll be a PowerPoint so you can follow along. You guys have it in your folders, I believe. So we ran a few programs all at once, and the programs ran 3 hours a day, 4 days a week for 5 weeks. And the programs that we just discussed, in addition to the Summer Boost program that is put on by the community school. And Tracy Roberts will talk more about that after our presentation. I'll keep going. There were 168 students at NES and NIS, 40 students at CPS and NHS, for a total of 208 students. That was for the Title I extended school year and the Title III programs. For all of those students, we had 25 teachers, 5 specialists, 18 teaching assistants, a student volunteer, and 2 coordinators. The Summer Boost program, which Tracy will talk about more, had 18 students, 1 teacher, 1 teaching assistant and translator, and 3 support staff, which were also students. So it was really great to get the students involved. This is the second year that the ESY and Title I have done that, and Tracy will probably talk more about the involvement of students in her program. We also had 2 full-size buses and 2 special needs buses. You can kind of just see here the breakdown of where the students were. There were 21 kindergarten students, and grade 1 had our biggest group of students with 37. And there was a Title I, a ESY, and a Title III section. So that's why those numbers are so much higher. Title III did split sections where it was grades 2 and 3 as they grouped their students a little differently than the other 2 programs. We also had specialized reading, physical therapy, speech and language, occupational therapy, translator and outreach person on staff all summer, which was really great, and the 2 coordinators to take care of all the things going on. So as part of the Title I extended school year, our little sub-team was me, Michael Horton, and Michelle Brady. And our goal of our program was to maintain the progress made in the previous year. So this is kind of just a glance at what our day looked like. And I highlighted the units of study, reading, writing, and the Eureka math units, because those were really our core. Everything else was to supplement those core programs. And we put some work into really trying to keep the curriculum going from the current school year through the summer. So those were updated this year to match and reteach some of the reading, writing, and Eureka units. The units of study varied by grade level. They were generally opinion, but first grade did how-to books, so that's informational, and kindergarten did narrative. The units of study for reading were a variety. 3rd and 4th grade did mystery units, and the other grades varied. We also incorporated Words Their Way and Foundations to continue and reteach the previous year's skills, or continue on with that study. Math was based with the Eureka math units. A lot of teachers tried out the 3-act math tasks, which were a really hands-on approach, more exploration and discussion involved in that. A lot of students really enjoyed that. One of the big things we tried to push was use hands-on math to make it more fun and engaging for the students. These are just a quick glance at some of the hands-on. Teachers were including STEM and STEAM activities. There's a math game up there to reinforce some of those skills. CPS and NHS had math and ELA, and theirs looked a little bit different. Theirs was based on IEP needs. All the students at these schools had specific needs that needed to be covered. It wasn't an inclusion program like the others. So they continued on with skills and strategies that they worked on with the school year. We were so lucky to have some of our regular school year staff on staff this summer to keep that going. So attendance is kind of an interesting to look at because we had a lot of students or parents who really wanted their children to come, but they had camps planned or trips. So that speaks to these numbers. There were only overall 16% of students who came every single day, which I don't think is that bad for the summertime. 80 to 95% attendance, there were 47% of students, and then you can see the other numbers. There were a couple students who came once or twice, and they went on vacation and camps to follow, so things just kind of got worked out for them. Some people were waiting on wait lists, and they got accepted, so they were no longer able to come to the program. According to pre and post tests, most of our students were able to maintain or improve. You can see the results for reading were 83% of students maintained or improved. That was based on both accuracy measures and comprehension measures. And writing, 98%, that's more of a rubric approach, so you would see greater growth because it's not as objective. So, and then mathematics, according to the assessments, 86% improved on that. So our goal of the program was to have that maintenance, so we're hoping that we'll see that in the school year. Some additional programs outside of Title I and ESY and Title III we had a Math Boost program with Brittany Beal, who did a fabulous job. Good to see you here tonight. And we had an Algebra Boost with Darren Lucas. And these are some of the things they worked on, some mathematical language and standards. They had some really great small group work going, and they were able to take on some of these standards for mathematical practice. And we just wanted to thank both of us. We got to, all the programs got to take advantage of this. Billy Myers came by a couple times with the bookmobile, and students were able to choose, I forgot what the number she said, 8 or some crazy number. So the students were so excited, and they were just, hauling them out. So it was a really great thing that she came by. This is the second year in a row that she's done that. These are just some more students working, see some project-based things going on, and some hands-on projects. That's
So I'm going to talk to you specifically about the Title III program. I also printed out, because I realized on the slides there's some rubrics that we use that are really hard to see what they are, but I think it's important. Plus I put in some student work because they're so cute and you can see how hard they worked on it. So if you want to just take them, pass it down. So we decided to have, or we were lucky enough to have, this EL summer enrichment program this year, which is the first year we've had it separated. Not only to really focus on the specific needs of our multi-language learners, but also to sort of help alleviate some of the caseloads in the other programs. We all know that summer slide happens with our students, but a lot of students who are multilingual experience a more severe rate of summer slide. So we really wanted to have a program that focused on their specific needs. Our goal is to provide a fun, safe learning environment where our bilingual students could grow their oracy skills as well as their literacy skills through science, math, and ELA. So this is an overview. So we had 61 students who attended K through 8. Kelly very kindly figured out the cost was $500 per student for the program, so that's less than $25 a day for these students to come. We were super lucky. We had experienced teachers on our staff as well. We had Taylor Murphy teaching our 13 kindergartners. Courtney Collins taught our 15 first graders. Alex Clark taught our 14 second and third graders. Matthew Richardson taught our 10 fourth and fifth graders. And Lena Civitarese taught our 9 6th through 8th graders. In addition to those super rock star teachers, we had Melanie Mendez as a bilingual TA to give support in the classrooms with the most newcomers. Lauren Gabriel, who was a bilingual volunteer and now is an NIS ESL teacher, so she actually came for free to support the students. And we had Jocelyn Ramirez, who was our bilingual support liaison. And I think she was really key in what you'll see later with our attendance, because she was able to really reach out to the families and remind them, of the importance of attendance. Then there's me, I was the coordinator for it, and of course Kelly, who is the director of our department. So this is our attendance data. I have it by section, but then also overall, so you can see overall it was 85% attendance, and that's just the average of each section's average. So it's super awesome. I do want to say, I think some of our sections look super low, but like our kindergartners had a really bad stomach bug one week, so a lot of them missed it. And then our 4th through 5th graders and our 6th through 8th graders occasionally had to help watch younger siblings, or it was rainy and they had to stay home because their sibling couldn't go to whatever camp. So some of those numbers that look significantly lower than the others, I think would have balanced out, but given the extenuating circumstances, they were a little lower. So our teachers were amazing, and I want to talk about them first because they did have extra hours in their contract in order to accommodate a goal that Kelly and I had, which was to have an hour of professional learning each week with them. So it started off with the full day PD, just like Andrea does with the ESY and Title I. But then each week we actually had an hour devoted to a specific topic. So our first week, we read research-based best practices in an article about the teaching and learning cycle. Now you have to build, especially for multilingual learners, their understanding of the field before you can ask them to read on their own or write on their own. And then the next few weeks, we focused on explicit language teaching, so looking at a scientific text, and I would model for them how I would teach students at differing age ranges how to deconstruct and take apart that text to notice the language features at not just the whole text, but at each sentence, and then even the words too. So I think this is important, and I put it in here specifically because their student growth is so closely tied to the teachers and how they're teaching and their willingness to take on challenging new learning, that I wanted to point it out to everybody. We use this rubric. It's the first page in your packet. I was completely blown away. I was so surprised. All the teachers ended the summer scoring an 8 overall or higher on the rubric, which if you look, like they're heading towards like mastery on that rubric. Every teacher improved by more than 2 points overall, which in realistically less than 20 days, like that's absolutely phenomenal. And in every category, each teacher improved by half a point to a full point. So the fact that like they were willing to take on something new and a new lens, which is what a lot of them kept telling me, it was a new lens of teaching, and that you saw that much improvement was awesome. They used this rubric in peer walkthroughs. I did informal walkthroughs to collect data on student discourse, quantity and quality, and then also to guide our PD for the next week. These are some quotes from them, the different lens to be teaching through, but it also gave me a lot of insight into what worked for them and what were some improvements that they wanted. So specifically, they named, almost every single teacher named having me co-teach with them or model a lesson in their classroom as the most or one of the most impactful parts of our program. And then the professional learning sessions were also impactful. They did mention that for like future programs, if we continue this, that maybe do a little bit less reading of the articles and have more of the chance for me to model, or whoever is the coordinator to model different activities as exemplars and different text deconstruction. But I just thought it was powerful to put their thoughts up there. Now onto the best part, the students. So the students got 20 days of explicit language instruction, and we measured their growth using the next rubric in your packet, which looks at their oral discourse. Most students improved in their oral English discourse by at least 1 level in each of those areas, and also they improved in their writing by at least 1 level in those areas. I say most because we did have newcomers who had 2 months or less of schooling in an English-speaking school, and this rubric doesn't really capture that like learning of the social language. But anecdotally, the teachers had records, and on the progress reports, they did note that the students were interacting more, verbalizing more, and they were happy to be at the school and came pretty much every day. I'm just going to talk quickly, like Andrea did, about our curriculum. So the science curriculum, Taylor Murphy actually built our kindergarten and first grade science curriculum unit, which was awesome. It was focused on forces in motion, mostly pushes and pulls. I built the second and third grade curriculum around the water cycle and states of matter, and then the 4th and 5th, as well as 6th through 8th units about biomimicry. So it was focused on students having hands-on science activities to do every single day of summer school, as well as tying those hands-on activities into what they were reading and writing. In ELA, the reading portion was focused on the teachers reading a mentor text to the students to build their field of knowledge around the topic, but also to build their knowledge of how it's structured at each level, so the discourse, the sentence, and the word level of the text, and understanding how they can then apply that when it was time for their writing. And I put some examples up here, but I know they're hard to see, so there's more examples of student work labeled by grade in your packets that I handed out. Math, we also used Eureka for K through 5th grade, and then 6th through 8th grade we used the G. Fletchy videos, which Andrea talked about, where it's the 3-part tasks. It's very hands-on and very much having them conceptualize the math without having to necessarily worry about the numbers at first. And it really pushes them to be focused on explaining their thinking, which was a huge focus here for us. We didn't just want them to get the math right, but we wanted them, especially as multilingual learners, to be able to explain how they got the math right, why they thought their answer was right, why they thought their friend's answer might have had a mistake in it. So it was super awesome to see the students and the teachers. You would walk in and you just hear them like chatting away. It was great. And then just some fun class photos. So overall, I think the program was successful. The students were happy to be there. The teachers, as teachers always do, obviously worked super hard to support the students and connect with their families. Two things that I know for me looking at this program, like kind of in the hindsight, I would have loved to have had funding to give them food. A lot of our students are on free and reduced lunch, but there's no programming in the summer for that to happen right now. So I think either like a breakfast and a snack, or a breakfast and like a bag lunch they take with them would have been helpful. A lot of them came in hungry, and I know myself and all of the teachers paid out of pocket to feed them. And then the other thing is we didn't have enough money in the budget to have a high school class. But in talking to the high school ESL teachers, something they would be interested in is like, they called it like real world skills, but things like how to apply to a job, how to do a job interview, how to write a resume, how to apply to college, like those skills that are hard to teach in the midst of everything else that's happening in high school. So I think those two things are areas to consider for next year.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. That was a great presentation. Thank you. Zona, do you have any questions or comments?
I don't, but thank you very much. That sounds like you guys had a very rigorous and exciting program this summer. So thank you for your time.
Colleen?
Thank you. I couldn't help but sit here and just smile at all of the pictures. And I'm astounded, considering the population that you're working with. Kudos to all of you, because the look on the children's faces of joy and satisfaction and determination and completion, I think it's wonderful to see that. And it saddens me to think about the needs of the students, and I'm sorry that we didn't know about some of the needs earlier, because I think gathering snacks and food is essential to have children learn and feel safe and committed to the program. So on top of that, that's even more impressive with all of the results that you've been able to succeed with this summer. I'm wondering if, and I don't know if it's the community school or I don't know if it's the parent network that Kelly works with, but I know with our EL families in particular that the babysitting needs in the summer is real. And so to have a 4th or 5th grade student have to not come into the summer program with that information, I just feel like it's our responsibility to do something for next summer. And whether that, again, is a camp or a program or through Parent Network, I don't know what we'd want to do, but I would ask that we put that on our conversation prior to planning for next summer, because that's not acceptable. And I think that's it. I've got some other notes, but I love the photographs and all of the hands-on projects. So thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Congratulations. That sounds very successful. How many kids would you think would be if you included the high school?
I think that's going to be the hard part for us, is that a lot of our high schools, even during the year, work like full-time hours and come to school. So then in the summer, when they get the opportunity to work even more. So I am open, and I think it would need to be like a flexible structure where it's like maybe it's not every single day that they're here, but it's like on their day off, or it could be at night instead, or like on the weekend instead, because it just depends on when they're working. I know that there have been concerns that have been expressed to me by colleagues about the fact that we're sending these kids out and they don't know how to write a resume, they don't know how to complete a job application, they don't know how to interview for a job. So I just think those skills, if we can build it into something that's going to be immediately, tangibly, like reward them for it, I think would be valuable.
Is this something you could do during school vacations, for example, during the winter?
I think it's a possibility to do it then.
Thank you. Steve?
A couple of questions and a couple of comments. Was there Title II in here somewhere?
No.
Oh, okay, because I was wondering about, I thought you said 1, 2, and 3.
It may have happened, but there is not one.
Item 2, who paid the 60 grand for the Title III program? Did that come from the federal government? Is that what Title III is all about? Did that come from the school district, or how does that happen?
So I don't think that the 60 grand total is all Title III, but I would say the sources that pay for these programs are the school budget, regular budget, special ed, extended year budget. Title I pays for some summer programming, and Title III. So all four of those sources combine to
But not
pay
the
for the summer
families
program.
is the critical.
Not the
important
families, no.
What I'm asking, it's all
No.
covered, that's
That's
great. I was particularly happy to see the professional development worked in. Obviously, glad to see it was successful, but the concept of working some of that in is great. And as Pauline mentioned, I think, I love the exemplars. Actually, I have not had a chance to look at them all, but seeing what the kids were actually doing at the different levels is a real kick. I appreciate that. Thank you. You guys did a great job.
So
Thank you.
may I?
Yes, sure.
Just so that everybody knows, the Innovation Pathways does work to address one of the things that you were talking about for those skills going out to interview the students that joined that this past year and continuing this year have that direction from both the ELL teacher last year and in conjunction with the guidance person. So I agree with you, and I also agree with you that the challenge is finding schedules that work for those high school kids in the summer, because I will tell you that they are often working 6 or 7 days a week to make ends meet for their family. So it's a real challenge. The other question that I have, and we wrestle with it every year, we usually debrief Andrea and talk about this, but what is the tipping point of how much is too much for the kids and letting them still come fresh in the school year, but giving them this work so that they don't regress? Because I do worry about that. You know, we talk about the stamina of children, and I know that many of them, particularly in the Title III program, need something to go to. But so I don't know that that's a question that you can answer, but it's something that we struggle with.
Right, I think there's definitely a balance. Somewhere between the 15 to 20 days seems like a good balance for the summer. We often struggle with the regression piece. If it's clumped together, we went to 4 days a week instead of 3 days a week for a shorter amount of time. So we were like, is that causing more gaps for regression on either end? But by the end of 20 days, like, you can tell the kids, they're like kind of longing for that time outside. We used to have an 18-day summer.
Right.
But when we added assessments and we like upped the ante and made it a little more rigorous, we went to the other schedule, which gave us 20 days. So I think anything more than 20 might be a bit much, especially since if you look at the attendance rates, they do kind of drop in and out because students have vacations to go on or camps to attend. It depends, upon the population and who they are too. So I think right now is a good balance.
Yeah, and I want to echo that. A lot of the kids, even the middle schoolers, when we were telling them, like, oh, it's the last 4 days, like, we really want you here, we're finishing our projects. They're like, what do you mean it's only 4 more days? So, like, they enjoyed it because I think it was so hands-on this year, but I agree. I think not only having the 4 days for 20 days, but also almost like where it was placed, where they had a few weeks off, then 20 days, then like 2 weeks off before school started again. I think like I've seen a bunch of these little friends and they're still like excited to be at school and refreshed and ready.
And then I don't speak for the Nantucket Education Trust, but I would imagine that you might be able to put a proposal together for net and other sources to fund the food piece.
Yeah, I would
That's
agree.
key.
Can I just make another comment on that? Might I make a suggestion, while summer is still fresh in our minds, that we could do like an informal survey with our EL high school students to maybe ask them, based on their schedules this summer, what would be the best time for them to be participating in some sort of education program, whether it would be night, late afternoons, and how often during the week. Because I think it's hard to get folks to visualize in May or April or February when they don't know, but coming right off of summer, I think they could, based on this year's schedule, their work schedule or their needs, when would have been a good time to have done this.
So I can see Jen and Kelly writing notes, and I'm sure they will follow up on that.
That'd be great.
And I like Tim's suggestion too of vacation for a lot of families that don't go away and don't travel, and it's just downtime. February. What are you doing? During February vacation if you're not traveling, and that could perhaps prepare them for the upcoming summer and applying for jobs, so they're ahead of the game.
And also maybe through the parent network, there's opportunities in one of the meetings or a couple of the meetings to bring the students together to have someone come and work with the students at night as well.
Thank you. Joel, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I just thought it was really nice how like rigorous the program is. It seemed like a lot of people are benefiting, but also, I mean, like look at the middle picture. The kids are all like, looks like they're having a really good time too. Like they want to be there. I actually did have one question. Was there any sort of so they took like was it a standardized test, or was it like a sort of a test formatted by the teachers?
We used a number of different assessments. In kindergarten, it was more of letter ID and sounds. First grade was more of sight word recognition and maybe a reading passage. And then the assessments from there up became a little more challenging. It was mostly reading passages. Can they read with accuracy at a decent rate, and did they understand what they were reading? So we had the teachers pre-assess so they could tease out which skills they needed to focus on, and if the student needed fluency or just strictly comprehension or accuracy. And then they did, like that was a Form A, they did a Form B at the end. So that gave us our pre and post test for reading. Writing was a quick write at the beginning, quick write at the end. They compared the two and hoped that they had applied the things they learned. And then math, those assessments varied, but they were generally basically to get an idea of what they needed to work on within the unit that they had selected, and then at the end, how they progressed through that unit.
Yeah, and ours were pretty much the same. So we only had one for ELA, and it was like an oral and written pre and post. First, they just told everything they could about a science topic just to see where they are with their language skills. They wrote as much as they could about a science topic of their choosing. The post was then, they actually made the scientific text that's in the packets that you have, obviously at the varying levels, but then we had a rubric to score that, as well as a rubric to score them explaining how they wrote the book and the most important parts they learned. In science, they got a photo or a video of a problem, and then they had to, for the older grades, come up with a design to solve that problem. And then for the younger grades, it was more like explaining and describing what they saw that was happening using what they had learned in their science experiments.
That was awesome.
It really is amazing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tracy?
Tracy?
Yeah, I'm good. I guess it-
All right, I'll try to keep it short and sweet. Stick to the numbers. I think we had a pretty successful summer at the community school. Most of our programs were running with children. Our adult ed programming ran, but in the summer it's not as vibrant typically as it is during the school year. So we attempted some new programs. Some things went and some things didn't. We struggle with that enrollment every summer. So let's see. I'm here on. So Summer Boost. As Andrea shared, we had 18 students in our Summer Boost program this summer. And Summer Boost is a program for children who haven't had preschool experience, but are coming into kindergarten in the fall. So we typically snag some of these families over the course of the year and have them join our Ready, Set, School program that runs 1 day a week, children and their parents. Getting them ready for kindergarten, and who we don't gather over the course of the school year, we typically will meet during kindergarten registration. That happens in January, and enroll students in the Summer Boost program. So this year, Susan Richards was our lead teacher, and Michelle Saravia, who is our interpreter for the community school, ran our class. And they fall under the CFCE grant. So we're funded by a grant for a portion of that program and supplemented by the Community Foundation and NET, and supported by the Harvey Foundation with a generous donation of books for the students to take home in the summertime. So this year we were fortunate enough to have 3 high school interns, and while you were sharing, it made me think about 2 of the interns in particular. One was actually a sibling of a kindergartner who was attending summer school. She wasn't able to get a summer job because she needed to watch her sister in the afternoon. So we ended up hiring her to work in our Boost program, and she's bilingual, and it was an excellent match. And the other student was a cousin of someone on staff, and she was just going to be home for the summer. She wasn't enrolling in the L program, and she came, and both girls are now on our staff at Extended Day. So it was excellent to see the collaboration and the growth that they could make in that program, and what they could learn by working with young kids and really being mentors to them. So that's great. This is just a quick glimpse at kindergarten enrollment. The number 18 was what we shared for our Summer Boost number. We actually had 14 Summer Boost students and 4 additional students. 3 of those students came from the Head Start program and 1 from the Pathways program. And they were children that were recommended to us as benefiting from that extra Summer Boost. So they joined our program. So I wasn't absolutely sure how to represent that in the graph, since it's now, they typically, or they really should count under that number of children that have preschool experience. But we were at 18, so I wanted to make sure that we show that that was our class size this summer. Uh-oh. So that is the school portion, and jumping over to the camp portion. We run Venture Day Camp in the summertime, and this is just a reflection of our camp numbers over the last few years. This does include the extended day. So some children will take part in a sports camp with us in the morning, and they will pop into the extended day that runs from noon to 4 o'clock. And so those numbers are accounted for in this slide. And this is a little hard on the eyes. But it is a breakdown of our camp enrollment over the course of the 7 weeks of camp and the 2 weeks of bridge camp. We have run bridge camp the last few years. The last 2 weeks of August, bridging together the summer camp season and the school year. And as you can see, this summer, we did not reach our maximum enrollment for bridge camp. So that's causing us to reflect on it a little bit. Those last 2 weeks are trying by the end of the summer for our staff, our full-time staff and our part-time staff. everyone's ready for a little bit of a break. The facility staff is busy readying the buildings for the school year. So we're giving thought to not running bridge this coming summer, and feel that if we notify families when we roll out our camp programming in February, that people will probably be able to find coverage and make that work, as it's been the trend that people have been doing that, and I think that's reflective in our number that we were at 13 each week this summer. We partner with Sustainable each summer and run ACK farming and gardening camp out of the garden that's on property. So Callan Duke is the lead for that, and that runs from 9 to 12 each day, and then on Fridays they take a field trip to the Sustainable Garden. So that's been a nice partnership that we fostered over the school year as well as the summer months, and that also has an option of pairing with extended day. So some children will choose to be in the garden in the morning and then come and join ACK Venture in the afternoon, and then that's a nice pairing as well. They can get the best of both. We were at 40 for farming and gardening this summer, 40 campers, and that's where we were last year. So that's a nice steady enrollment, even though it looks different. And Sustainable actually ran our bridge program for the last few years, and this summer opted to not take part in bridge. So we staffed bridge camp ourselves, which is also why I think we saw a change for our staffing. So that is why there aren't numbers for ACK farming and gardening for fiscal years 17 through 19. I'm quickly going to just run through just some numbers of our sports camps. So we run a gymnastics camp that had pretty steady, it's always had pretty steady enrollment. A lot of our sports camps are really dependent on the staff that we have to run them. If we did not have a qualified person to be running a gymnastics camp, it would make it really difficult for us to do that safely. So staffing is hugely important to us. The same goes for our basketball camps. And this is just total enrollment in sports camps. You can see on the side the options that we had this summer for sports camp. And that enrollment was on the rise. The pool was busy this summer, as it always is. This is just a picture of what's going on during Learn to Swim. Swim lessons run in the morning and in the afternoon. So there are many children that will go to Learn to Swim lessons before they go to camp, or they will come in the afternoons after their camp is over. And this is just a quick glimpse at what's going on with day passes and memberships at the pool, just for the summer months. Hydro Fitness and Aquasize run at the pool over the course of the summer as well, and the summer swim team numbers were up this summer. We also manage the tennis courts at Jetties under the auspice of rec, and our youth numbers were up with clinics, and our revenue numbers were up as well. Each year, yes, we have seen a rise in revenue, and I think it's directly related to the staffing. In fiscal year 18, we did not have a tennis pro at the courts, and that really hurt. So this summer we actually had 2 tennis pros, and with more staff, they can give more private lessons and offer more clinics, so that brings in more revenue. And at the very end, just a shout out to all of our community partners. Our campers are on the buses every day. They are going around the island and adventuring in all that the island has to offer, and that's the goal for us, to get kids out. And we would not be able to do that without all the community partners that we connect with and support our program. Yeah, so, thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Zona, any questions or comments?
Not for me, thanks.
Colleen?
I do. So at the risk of sounding like the survey queen, I'm wondering, I know how important Bridge Week is to working parents, and I certainly appreciate the tiredness of your staff, the struggles of being in a school and trying to get ready. I can say that because I've experienced the program, so I understand. But I'm also just, I wonder if it's something you want to think about, to maybe survey the parents who were in your camp this summer and maybe just ask what their options were, or what did they choose to do for those 2 weeks prior to school going back into
the other camp families from weeks 1 through 7.
Yes, 1 through 7. Just and also survey the families who did participate, and I just think it's good information to find out, did they all go on vacation? Was it the cost of 9 weeks over 7 weeks was just too expensive? Is it that normally family comes in at this time? Because I remember at the time when I was at the camp that all the programs stopped. There's very few that have bridge programs. So I just wonder, I think it's worth getting maybe some information from your parents, because I do see that the numbers fell, but that kind of, I'm curious as to why. So that, just a suggestion. And I smiled when you said about the gymnastics. I wrote down impressive numbers, 7 weeks straight of gymnastics camp, but of course it's because you've got the instructors, and so that's wonderful, and it's great. On the youth learn to swim, not looking for numbers tonight, but I wonder if you have a sense, or if you don't, would you consider getting a sense of the percentage of non-swimmers in our school district compared to the students that are taking for fee-based programs, swim lessons? I would be curious in just getting an idea of how many 3rd through 12th graders are in our schools who are non-swimmers, who are not participating in classes.
And learn to swim classes.
Learn to swim classes, yep. And then public open hours unlocked. Oh, yeah. Jetty's tennis. I appreciate that we're the public tennis courts, but do you, after your programming's done, do you leave the courts open for free tennis? Like, is there any period of time that the community can go down and just...
Yes, actually there was a fundraiser by the Park and Rec Commission last year where they fundraised and they made a donation to the community school so that we were able to host pizza and tennis evenings over the course of the summer. We hosted 4 of them, and they were very well attended. But in terms of leaving the courts open, we don't just leave the courts open with rackets and tennis balls. But we offered multiple occasions over the course of the summer for free tennis.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Tracy.
No.
Tim? Steve?
Thank you for the varied opportunities that you gave our kids. So many different things, it's great.
Thank you, Joel.
All set.
Okay, thank you very much, Tracy. Thank you. Thank you. All right, moving on to Jim Hardy.
I'm going to bring Jim down here, and I'll sit in front so he can
Okay.
join you.
Cheers.
Well, I think it's a little cramped.
Welcome, Jim. Thank you for making the trip.
Thank you. How was everybody?
Great.
Good.
How are you?
I'm
Thank
doing
you.
well, thank you. Pass it left, please. It's great to be back here to discuss a little bit about the, it's just one page. The survey, Pauline.
Love surveys.
That you guys worked on over the summer. I do want to apologize for my emergency in August. It wasn't a family emergency as much as it was a water issue. The pipe that goes from the town shut off to my house burst. It was spilling water into the street, and then the town shutting the water off because I wasn't paying for it, so it was theirs. So I had to have an excavator crew come in and dig 122 feet of trench to replace a new copper pipe. So for those who know how much copper costs, you can figure out just how much that did cost me. But it was taken care of, but unfortunately it affected my ability to come here on that day. There were two primary questions in the survey I asked you to participate in. One, first question was, how much time do you think you spent on specific tasks that were listed? And the categories, did you spend significant time? Did you spend some time? Did you spend minimal time? No time, or you don't know the answer to the question? And the second question was, how important is that task to you? Is it very important, important, unimportant, very unimportant, and don't know? So what this sheet represents is a comparison of those two responses. And what I was looking for is, you track against what you do spend your time on, and then in your list, how important were those things overall to you? Are you spending the time at your meetings on things that are important to you? That's the purpose of what that whole survey was to identify, So each of the tasks was the same task in each of the two questions. The very first one was discussing improvement in student learning. Well, it was the thing you spent the most time on, or very significant time on. As a group, you all felt that way. It was also one, as a group, very important to you. So that's why both of those are ranked number one. And when you look at the weighted average, which is in the time spent column 1.4, for every significant time, it was 1 point. For every some time, 2 points, and so forth and so forth. So there were 4 people who thought we spend significant time discussing student learning, and 1 person said some time. So that's where that average came in. And the same was how important as well. So there was like a 4-to-1 parameter there. But that was the closest as far as number ones go, as far as significant in both categories. You're spending time on it, and it's important to you. So that's a good thing. So something you're spending a lot of time on is of importance to you. I'm going to skip down the list a few ways, but close to somewhere in the middle. And the item is adopting and monitoring long-range and annual improvement goals to improve student learning. Now, in the survey, you said you spent on average minimal time on that topic. That would be the 3. But it's very important to you. And that would create an average score of 1. So that's a 2-point spread. And those were the things that I was looking for. Is those areas where you're spending maybe not as much time on something that's important, or you're spending a lot of time on something that's unimportant. And that's what I was trying to help you identify. Because when you look at those characteristics, those 8 characteristics of high-performing boards, according to all the research nationally, highly effective school committees, school boards, national term, spend the most time on the things that are most important to them. And they spend the least amount of time on the things that are least important to them as a group. And that's, you know, when you look at how important it is to you, there was only, out of all those questions, there was only one response on 5 of them that it was unimportant. So most of those categories, most of the respondents said it was either very important or important. So for most of those categories, again, they're important to you, but there's a variety of, some are very important, some are important, so that's that weighted score. So that's why I go by the weighted average, because it depends on whether it's 5 very importance, 4 very importance, 3 very importance, 2 very importance, 1 very important. So you kind of weight it out. So when you look at the lower the number there in that weighted average column, that last column on the right, that's the lower the number, the higher importance it is to you as a group. So you could have 4 people say it's very important and 1 person say it's unimportant, and that's going to inflate the weighted average score. And that's why it is that way. Another one of those is 2 down from that, adopting and monitoring plans for improving student learning. Again, these are all student learning, student achievement questions. Minimal time spent on it, it's a very important category. 2 more down from that, evaluating the effectiveness of professional development for improving student learning. No time, on average, spent on that, yet it was important to you. So again, it was that 2-point spread there in category. Now, on the flip side of that, there was nothing that was time spent that was more important, that flipped the other way. Everything else was the more important things you didn't spend time on, but there wasn't really anything you spent a lot of time on that wasn't important to you. So now it's simply a matter, okay, how do you manage the time within that overall parameter? Now, part of this might have been the timing of the survey, because it was done during the summer. So I wonder if we did it again later in the school year, if things would change. And I think a big portion of that would change with the fact that the discussions you've been having about your own goals. Superintendent shared the goal document with me that was presented at that August meeting. And I made a couple of suggestions as far as word changes and things like that. But overall, I thought it was a really good document. And the reason I thought it was a good document is because you identified what you would use as the evidence, whether it be staff presentations like you saw tonight, other information gathered. You identify what that was going to look like and what that evidence is going to be. And the fact that you built it maybe on the model of the educator evaluator, because that's kind of what it looked like a little bit, particularly the new revised one, I thought was a really good tool. And I've actually shared it, giving you full credit, with a couple of other school committees that are looking for ways of drafting goals, so to speak. So you had that overarching goal, which is that goal number 1. It was kind of like the bigger goal. And then you broke it down to smaller bits of that, identify what success is going to look like and how you're going to measure it. That's a great step. Now, the idea being is you now have to discuss that and talk about it all the time. Where are we with this? How is the evidence progressing? Things to that nature. And you have to be able to have those conversations at some point. So you should maybe once every other month until you get along the line, have an update discussion as to where you are with your goals. Mid-year review, end-of-year review, and then you start the cycle again. So, all right, this is what we wanted to do. This is the achievement level we wanted to get to. This is the evidence that we identified we were going to utilize. How did we do? Did we get there? Did we not get there? If we didn't get there, why? That's the important question. What stopped us? Was it time? Just didn't have enough time at meetings? Did you not have enough funding? Was it a budgetary issue, the reason you didn't get there? So those are some of the things you want to look for. Now that you have the document, just don't put it in hey, we got goals, and put them in a book and stick them on a shelf. It's got to be a living, breathing document. Just as every evaluation instrument that educators have, the administration has, it's something that they live and breathe. One of the other things I really thought was interesting in this process was, for the most part, you're all in sync. As far as what you think your priority should be, maybe not how you spend the time at the meetings to get there, but what you believe. The fact that, for the most part, there's 5 items on here that 4 of you think were either important or very important, and one person doesn't think it's important at all, gives me cause for pause, which means that you guys need to have more discussion about stuff like that. Making sure that everyone is sharing that goal component. It's got to be collectively your goal document. It can't be, Zona's or Pauline's or Jen's or Steve's, Tim's. It's got to be It's got to be the Nantucket School Committee's goal document, goal statement. This is what we want to do. Because if you're not all buying into that, then it's really going to be hard to get there at the end. So when you do, is it they finally adopted it, or is it just still in?
Our goals?
Yeah, is it?
Tonight.
All right, so once you make that decision to buy into that, you got to buy in, all of you. Grammar teachers can smack me for that, but all y'all got to buy into that document. It's got to be something you live and breathe. It's got to be something that you reference and you look at when you're setting agendas. All right, we talked about this presentation. We got all these staff presentations. There's a lot of staff presentations as part of evidence. You might need to schedule those so that you don't get to May and go, we need 7 staff presentations between now and June. You may want to look at a calendar ahead of time and start plotting things in. And that's really up to you to do that. It's not up to the administration to schedule that. You have to tell them, this is how we want to do that. This is how, as far as your meeting goes. And then it's simply a matter of, what do you want the presentation to be? I did share some presentation guidelines for staff making presentations to the school committee. And one of them is, all right, what do you want the presentation to be? What do you want it to include? How long do you want it to be? Tonight's presentation was very good. I thought it was very succinct and very to the point. Sitting in that back row, can't hear anything. Now, I know the mics are for TV, but there's speakers in the ceilings. These can't be hooked up to the room? I'm just saying. But I don't know, can anybody else hear normally? Up there at the podium, when people are at the podium, could you hear? Not with that fan going on in the back corner. Yeah. So the same was true for the 2 public comment people. I couldn't hear you either. And I sat back there on purpose, because I've been in this room before, so I know what that fan's like. So I just wanted to see. So it's just something that, when you're trying to make it so that you have these presentations, make sure people can hear out there, because that's an important piece too, okay? A lot of times when Pauline, you were asking questions, you had to turn to ask the question because the presenter's behind you. Well, that's a quirk of the room. I don't know how else you could do that, but you're asking the question and the mic's in front of you. So everybody out here, maybe in TV land, couldn't hear the question you were asking unless that mic over there on the podium picked it up. So it's just something you have to be cognizant of. Because if part of what you're trying to do is public outreach, you have to make sure the public can hear what you're saying and see what you're saying. Now, the visual part of it's great. That works out really well. I thought the slides were really well done. There are a lot of color in them, which is a very important aspect in public presentations. Use of color consistently across the board. Red is bad, green is good. Yellow and blue are somewhere in the middle. But that's generally some of the things that you try to do in those presentation part of it. So that's something to just keep in mind when you're asking these people to come in and do presentations for you, the staff members. They're used to working and standing in front of a classroom. This might not be their shtick, so to speak. Might not be something they're very comfortable with. This is public speaking. Classroom environment's different. Teachers own the classroom. So that's something that's well within their comfort zone. This might not be. So making sure they have a clear understanding of what it is that you want them to present is very, very important. And that's what, you can look at those guidelines. I don't know if Dr. Kozar shared them with you, but they're available. And you can tweak them and change them or whatever. They're just guidelines, they're samples. So with all that, for the most part, I was pleased with the result. I was pleased with the results of the survey because I saw a lot of consistency through it in that things that you identified as spending a lot of time on are actually important to you. There wasn't anything that you really identified that you spent. It wasn't important to you that you spent a lot of time in the meetings. The one exception might be simply because of the way the scores broke out was time exists for staff to work together to improve student learning. And it's just the way that the scoring broke out and where your responses came up, because that was pretty split across. There was like a 1, a 2, a 2. There wasn't real consensus on that. It was like a 3, 2, 3 thought it was important, 2 didn't think it was important. So, well, we didn't spend a lot of time on it. But overall, I thought it was pretty in line. So that's a good step, knowing that your meetings are at least focusing for the most part on things that you are important to you. Because I have nothing better to do. I actually went online and looked at some old meetings from earlier in the year. You guys do have a tendency to sometimes go off in tangents. A question comes up and all of a sudden you're over here. It might take a few minutes for you to come back to the main point. But I think overall, for the most part, it was a good question I thought it was a good question that took you off onto a tangent. But then, part of it's where you need to get back to what we're actually talking about, because then other things. It was the, not to bring up a sore topic, but it was kind of like that marijuana shop thing where the presentation was here and then the discussion went to this. And it took a very long time to come back to what this was. So it's probably the only time at a meeting you've been able to voice your concerns over that. But it's just kind of one of those things that you just have to be cognizant of, because is that where you want to spend the time that night? If it's that important, schedule it as a separate whole discussion. Or maybe have the discussion with the people who are actually in charge of oversight rather than here. You know what I mean? But other than that, I think the survey proved out pretty well. Like I said, just those 4 items I thought were something to draw your attention to, simply because there was a 2-point spread out of 4 in those 4 categories. And that's where I thought it showed the disparity in importance in time. Everything else was pretty much 2, 3, 2, 2. You're only talking about like 0.2, 0.3 difference. Then when you get down into the those things that were minimal time but important, that's where you got into the 2-point spreads between the 2 categories. And that's kind of what I was looking for in that survey, is where that disparity existed. But it's hard to, the other part I acknowledge is it's hard to look at that list of tasks and say it's not important to you. Part of me wishes I had redone it and asked you to rank them, like 1, 2, 3, 4, something like that. But something I learned for this going forward. But that's a lot of stuff to absorb really quickly. The components I thought that were really important are those that I've highlighted. Not all of the categories were clearly into the significant time. There was a lot of some time being spent. And I think the matter was, when you look at the first question, or the second question was, how many hours do you spend in a month? And the fact that the number one response was 1 to 5, I think that was significant, probably, of the fact that you took the survey in the summer. Because you probably spent more than 1 to 5 hours this month already on school committee stuff. So I think that the actual number was probably 5 to 10, or if not higher. Just in looking at your agendas and the things that you've been doing in subcommittees and everything else, so workshops. So.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, feedback?
I just want to comment that I some of the same things you just said about us making sure we're on the same page with the goals
Mm-hmm.
and we're all in. I made that comment at the end of the meeting last week, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that's, I'm ready to buy in, I guess.
I think once you get to that point and you go, here's our goals for the year, and you say, hey, all right, now we have something to work forward, and you now have this target to shoot for, and you can track your progress because you've identified how you're going to measure it. It's a great aspect, knowing full well how you're going to measure the progress towards these goals, and say, okay, are we doing this? Are we doing this? Are we moving along? Are we moving along? Are we moving along? Because everybody wants to achieve what you set out to do, right? And the fact that I talk with a lot of groups about setting goals and the difference between, a goal and a clearly defined, I hate the term SMART goal, but the clearly defined goal in that, I'm going to lose weight. Well, that's a goal. I'm going to lose 10 pounds by this day by doing this. And I'm going to ratchet, I'm going to walk 2 miles a day for the first week. Then I'm going to walk 3 miles a day. And you've set those steps up in your goal document. And I really like the way that was presented. So I think if you just use it now as a tool, keep it in front of you, refer back to it, I think you can make some serious progress towards achieving those goals. My fear is that you're going to rest your laurels on the fact that you've got this great goal document and never look at it again until June. That's my fear. Because that's what I see a lot, unfortunately. Things come up, you get into budget discussions, all this other stuff, and all of a sudden, other things get in the way of having goal conversations. It's something that's easy to put off till the next meeting.
Jen, you might want to mention the On the Horizon, which is the vehicle to do that.
Right.
That you
We do.
have.
We do have an on the horizon where we do keep track of stuff but I still feel like we struggle with the monitoring with a lot of our presentations and our goals.
Well,
throughout the
that one
year.
actually ties back to kind of one of your goal documents, and I think the monitoring part of it is the staff presentations. Now, what you need to do is, all right, what do we want in that staff presentation? What measurement do you want? Do you want data? What information do you want as part of that? Don't have them come to the meeting and then, Pauline, it's going to sound like I'm picking on you, but then
That's okay.
ask for, well, did you survey? Do you have data to support these documents? Where if you say at the very beginning, we'd like to have some data on the progress of if Tracy had been told that, hey, what happened in those 2 weeks, she may have been able to get some information prior to this presentation tonight and be able to answer that question. You know what I mean? So that's part of what setting the expectation of what the presentation is going to be is really, really important. And that might simply be something you have to you sit down and you discuss with the superintendent and whoever that staff person is that's going to be making that presentation. This is what the school committee wants to see in this presentation. And these are the elements we'd like you to cover. So that it's a very succinct, to the point presentation, hits all the highlights that you want it to hit, gives you the information that you're looking for, so that you can say, okay, so when we go back to measuring, right, here's some data that we can utilize for that component. The fact that you guys did that goal statement made this presentation kind of moot, I thought. It was, that goal statement, that goal document would have been a byproduct of something like this, but the fact that it's in place is kind of like, well, then that's the next step. Now, the next step is implementing that and following through on that.
But I think these are really good reminders for us with our goals to continue to see and prove that we've seen the evidence.
Right.
And by curtailing the presentations and such, so we know we
I
are,
don't know, curtailing them. I think it's focusing them.
right.
Not necessarily because you may not want to shorten them. Maybe the length is correct, but you want specific areas focused on. Like you want an update on the math curriculum. Okay, well that could be
Right.
a 3-hour presentation. Just if you're looking at updating math curriculum, all right, what do we do in kindergarten? What do we do in first grade? What do we do? Or if you're looking very specifically at one specific area of the math curriculum, you want to see what the update was. That'd be a little bit different. But if the person who's presenting doesn't know that, then they're guessing as to what you're looking for, and that usually never works. And no fault of the presenters. 'Cause,
No.
You know,
It's interesting because I'm wondering, how do you communicate that as a board?
Well, a couple of things, we get the package ahead of time, we read through it, but sometimes you don't know that specific question until it doesn't get
Sure.
answered.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So I think what will happen more often than not is that we just may need the follow-up for the next meeting to answer those questions. You just set aside a section, just say, we're gonna, just to go back to our meeting from last 2 weeks ago, whatever.
Exactly.
Here were the questions presented, here are the answers, or have that person come back and present just that piece.
Right.
But to follow up, so, because I know that happens with me all the time.
Right.
You can read through it, you can imagine, you can jot it
Yeah.
down, but then they tell you the answers, and then there's that one that you didn't get quite the answer to that you
Yeah.
really want to know.
It's funny, when I was first elected to the school committee in 1993 was the beginning of the Education Reform Initiative. And all the administrators at school committee meetings were throwing around this acronym, and I'm like, what is that? What is that? MCAS. That's where it came from. 1993 Education Reform Act, MCAS. I was like, what does that stand for? I have no idea, and I don't want to ask the question because I don't want to look like an idiot. I didn't know what MEEPS stood for either. For those of you who have been around a while, I know now. But it was like one of those things I pulled the superintendent aside after the meeting. It's like, I don't want to sound like an idiot on camera, but what does this stand for? Oh, Massachusetts Comprehensive Assessment System. It's like system. One test is a system. Anyway, it's another whole story. But, it's also one of those things that, like Sona pointed out, maybe the question doesn't pop in your head until you hear the information. It's like, oh, okay, that triggered something in my head. And that's all right. That's why you have the period of time for discussion afterwards, to be able to answer those questions.
And in all fairness, when we do have follow-up questions, all the presenters have been amazing at emailing us with the information after the meeting.
Yeah, I was gonna say, our people are pretty good.
Very good
Yeah.
at following
Getting
up.
back to us, not at a meeting
Right,
necessarily, but in some form.
absolutely.
So I'm just adding to that piece that maybe it should be part of the meeting to keep it public informed. That's all I'm saying, because they may want to know the answer to those questions
Right,
as well.
instead of it just an email to
But
us.
if it was an email to you, you could always respond just as, as a follow-up to our last meeting. I asked the question, blah, 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 here's the response we got, and you could just read the email too, instead of having a person come out to another meeting.
Right, that's true.
But that would get the information out to the public that maybe you asked the question, maybe somebody else there had the same question too and is interested in the answer. So,
Do you have any?
I'm sorry,
just
what's your
a-
name? Joel?
Sorry.
Just
Nice to meet you. Senior?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Don't serve me.
Jen.
But
so-
I expect, thank you. I
You can't help
appreciate that.
yourself.
You can't help
Right.
it. I work in about 160 school districts in southeastern Massachusetts, Cape and the Islands. Every single one of them, for the most part, is having a problem finding a student to serve in your role, the role that you have right now. I congratulate you and thank you for stepping up and to do this. And please be sure you bring the students' concerns and the students' opinions to this body. It's a very important role you have. And don't treat it lightly, please. Okay? All right.
Careful with that sort of stuff.
Moving on to Pauline.
Yes, Pauline, I'm sorry.
No, just my comment. I think that the whole exercise was really wonderful. I think it made me think in different ways and really sit and think about the questions before answering them. So I think for me, it's expanded my vision for my role here. It's very interesting information and the data back. I have to thank Beth and Mike. I think we do thank Beth and Mike for helping put together the goals and working with us for that, because I think that it's a very strong document. And I believe moving forward that, I'd like to make the recommendation that we put on as an agenda item each meeting, some part of where we have the discussion on our goals, whether it's we decide to move from goal 1 to 2, et cetera, or if we want to speak and choose the goal for the next coming meeting. But I would like to see it on the agenda for every time now, because you're right. We don't want to have it just sit. And now we know that you're sharing it with other communities. We're definitely not going to have it sitting on the shelf. We want to be an exemplar. But no, I think it was the process for me was really extremely good. So thank you.
Yep.
Tim?
No, I found it very interesting doing the survey, and really did refresh my thinking about it and trying to look at it and were we really focusing on the right things. So I found it valuable.
I want to say, sorry, I didn't find it interesting. I found it very confusing. It did make you think in a different kind of way. Instead of a straightforward way, it made you stop and think about the question and the kind of answer you were looking for. So I just want to put that out there. I didn't find that amusing. Sorry.
Well, somebody come to me and said, well, these things repeat themselves, right? I was like, yeah, but the premise is different in that what are you spending time on? But what's most important to you?
Yeah.
And I think the most important question got skewed a little bit in that, because no one wanted to collect, well, except for a few exceptions, no one really said, well, it's not important to me. All right. If I had you rank them, it might be different. But then you would have hated me for making you rank 20 things. So.
Plus, we did this before we had the goals too.
Right.
Some of our answers were centered around that.
Right.
So.
And did you ever see our self-evaluation that we worked on? Did you ever?
Yes, I did.
You
see
did.
it.
You
Yeah,
did see
yeah,
that because we talked about that actually.
Yeah.
That's why you were here. That's
Yeah.
right. Okay.
That's what prompted the survey.
Right. Absolutely. I wasn't sure if you had,
Yeah.
actually had a copy of that. Of course you did. Steve?
Do these results suggest to you that we should have more meeting time?
Well, I'm never going to be the one to suggest anybody has more meeting time. I think you have as much meeting time as you need. And it's up to you. Well, I think you need to schedule as much meeting time as you need. You have to decide what that is. But my objective is to make sure you use the most out of the time you do schedule, so that your meetings are productive and they're not. No one feels like, well, it's 3 hours. I'm never going to get back out of my life. If you walk out of a meeting thinking that, you haven't had a productive meeting. You've got to come out. You should come out of the meeting a little energized, I think, in that you had a great presentation. You have people in the audience. You have some participation, so forth. You feel good after the meeting. You feel like you accomplished something worthwhile. Why you ran for the seat in the first place? Why you became a school committee member in Nantucket? What did you want to do? So that's part of it. And I think if you stay focused on your goals, your established goals, and you keep your meetings focused on what it is that you've scheduled for that night, I think you'll find you have enough meetings scheduled already. You can use workshops to take big things, to bring them down to smaller things, to then have the public discussion. You can utilize workshops. You can utilize subcommittees for certain aspects of the work. And then that work comes before the full committee for further discussion, review, and so forth. Subcommittee meetings are open to the public too. Your workshops are open to the public. They're workshops. They're still open to the public. People can go. But the basic premise is, what you want to make sure is what's here is focused on what you want to get done, that it's it's based on and driven by your goals, and that it's something that the topics are all of importance to you. Now there are some things you have to do because you have to do them, And those are those, those quick votes or whatever that have to, there's some perfunctory things that you have to perform. No one likes voting on minutes, or even granted, but it's an important thing you have to do. All right, there are some ways you can kind of consolidate some of that stuff too, but it's called a consent agenda, but that's another good conversation for another day. If you can sit at the meeting and feel like you did good work tonight, you performed what you got accomplished what you wanted to accomplish tonight, then you should feel good about that meeting and move forward. If you don't think that you're getting enough done, then maybe you look at another meeting. But that's up to you. I'm not going to tell you you need 3 meetings or 2 meetings. I have some committees that I would classify as high performing. They meet once a month. It's a 3-hour block, once a month. They do a lot of subcommittee work, but the full meeting meets once a month. But they trust their subcommittees. That's the other way subcommittees work, is if the full committee trusts the work that's being done there. And they don't feel they have to revisit all of that work at the full committee meeting. And then you don't need a subcommittee anymore. If all that conversation happens again at the full committee meeting, there's no use for the subcommittee. So.
That does call to mind some comments on the Mask server about committees that only meet once a month.
Yeah.
So
And that
they
don't
must
meet during the summer.
solve the issue with subcommittees and otherwise,
Yeah.
because I can't imagine. I have a comment and a question about the goals that we're going to vote on. My comment is that I find it pretty intimidating, the amount of goals that we're setting, the evidence that we're going to agree to attempt to do. It's just a personal comment. It seems like a lot, which ties in to some extent to my question about whether we need more meeting time. I have a specific question, though, if it's in your purview to answer it. There are a number of these that say words to the effect of the school committee will direct administration to ensure the following. How do we direct administration to ensure? I mean, by commenting at meetings, by having motions at meetings?
Can you give me an example on one of the statements for that?
Well, the very last one,
On
right now, the very, very last. The school committee will direct administration to ensure that district allocates sufficient instruction time for all students in core content areas. We actually have that going on at the moment, as you'll hear if you stick around for a bit for the superintendent's report. How do we ensure? How do we direct?
Part of that's done through the course of studies work, but a lot of it's going to be in that presentations to the school committee. You're going to ask for presentations that show how instructional time is being allocated into the different core areas and what rationale was used to determine that. Now, part of it might simply be the product of the schedule, particularly at the high school level, because things are allocated in different block times. But when you get into the lower grade levels, a lot of that's up to the frameworks and the what the teams have put together. As far as we're going to spend X number of hours or minutes in a day on this, so that when the whole grade gets together, that whole team gets together and they talk about it, that's the evidence you would ask for from the administration as to how that time was allocated. And then based off of the analysis of the student performance data, determine whether that was sufficient time or not. So by putting the goal statement is how you direct the administration. Because you're putting it in these are now goals for the district. Everyone should be working to achieve the district goals. Because if everyone, and this is part of the buy-in from everybody else too, is just if you have these goals and they all go, we're not doing that, none of these are going to happen.
So in essence, by voting for this document, we are making
That's
those
the direct,
directions.
yeah, that's exactly right. If you don't have it written down and voted, when you vote something like this, it becomes actually like de facto district policy. This is what you want to do and why you want to do it. And the administration now has to develop the who, the how, all that other stuff.
And we have to follow up to make sure it's being done. I mean, we can't just
Yeah,
put it out
I made a
there.
note, ask for presentation updates.
Yeah. But like I said, there's like, one of the things I mentioned is there's a lot of presentations to the school committee built into the evidence here. You may want to start scheduling some of those out and giving the appropriate staff who might be making those presentations a little bit of time. Don't say, hey, we need a presentation Tuesday, and you tell the staff member Monday afternoon. That really that's not fair. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
But maybe that's part of the document. It kind of grows as like, here's the upcoming presentation schedule, so that everybody's aware of it, that you're all aware of it.
Yeah, so yeah. Right.
Okay.
Thank you. Joel, do you have any questions or comments?
I just sort of had an example that like shows how like laying out your goals and like pre-planning everything really works. So in football, when I was younger, our practices sometimes went for 2.5, 3 hours. It was just too much. I felt like we wasted a lot of time. Whereas these past few years, the coaching staff's implemented like a practice is 2 hours, and you might be like, well, how could you get everything in 2 hours? So we have everything is pre-planned out, and we have sort of like we said, subcommittee work. We have specials and like O-Indy and D-Indy, where you come down before practice and you get all the work in that you need to do before, so that come team time, come when everyone's together, it's really efficient and everything goes smooth.
Yeah. That's a good analogy. That's a
Yeah,
good
that's
tie-in.
very
It's a
good.
very
Thank
good
you.
example. See?
Thank you, Joel.
Good stuff, Joel. Good stuff. Future superintendent. You can shoot higher than.
Thank you.
Hi.
Thank you.
Oh.
I think we're
All right.
set on the discussion for now.
Okay.
And we know where to
Awesome.
reach you if we
You
have
do.
any
Thank you,
other
Jim.
Questions. Thank you very much. Committee discussion and votes to be taken. This is very exciting now. I'm very excited. Could we vote? I'd like to vote to approve the school committee goals.
I move to approve the school committee goals.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very nice. We've tabled the approval of the CPS handbook. May I have a vote to approve the donation from Egan Maritime Institute to CPS for maritime studies in the amount of $21,221.25?
So moved.
Second.
You have a question?
Is that raised from the lease? Is this something?
No, it's for the CPS stuff in the
I
oceanography
don't know about
program.
the people at the back, but I can't hear what you're saying now.
Sorry.
It was a
Sorry.
side question anyway.
Ask it louder and then I can.
Next time.
May I have a vote to approve?
May I just make a comment? I will recuse from this vote.
Sure. We're going to do this again. May I have a vote to approve the donation from Egan Maritime Institute to CPS for maritime studies in the amount of $21,221.25?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
A vote to approve donation from Nantucket Dolphins swim team boosters to Nantucket Community School for summer travel in the amount of $224.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
A vote to approve the August 20th, 2019 meeting minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
A vote to approve the September 3rd, 2019 workshop session meeting minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
A vote to approve transfers and invoices.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Superintendent's report. Rotary update, please.
Yes, Diane O'Neill and I met with several town officials a little over a week ago to talk about the Rotary at Bartlett and Surfside. Just want to keep the school committee informed that it is the intent of the town to move forward with that Rotary. You'll recall that we've had, I think, 2 presentations at school committee over the last year. and they did try the experiment, I guess it could be called, of using the stop signs. And this is still a work in progress, but we have been led to believe that this will be taking place in 2021. So there will be more discussion about it. And while I believe that the plan is moving forward, I'm not sure that the funding for it has been approved at town meeting yet, but just want to keep you informed.
Well, I think it's a horribly bad idea. I think we should name it, if it gets built, name it after somebody so that when a kid gets hit there, we can always remember the name of the person that approved it. I always felt that would be nice to have the Mr. X Memorial Roundabout is where little Billy Jones got run over. And we can continue that in the paper forever. I think it's a dangerous initiative, and I hope it comes to town meeting and gets blown out of the water. I think the stop signs are a moderate pain in the butt, but they only continue what was going on functionally beforehand. And I think safety to me is a paramount issue, and I have spoken to several members of the committee, and I think they feel that way.
I might add, we've had
Well,
that discussion.
this isn't under
and we were
discussion, so
unanimous.
this isn't under discussions right now. This is just a quick
I
update
have a
from.
question though for Mike. Does this mean that they're not gonna follow up on the corners rotary?
The meeting that we had was on the Bartlett Rotary. It was not about anything else. And I started the meeting by sharing the school committee's concerns about that. So I'm just keeping you informed. They are fully aware that of the feelings of
They are
the,
aware, and I did have a conversation with Andrew Vorse, and he is going to speak to the engineer, and potentially we're going to have a workshop on site of where the potential rotary is going to be, and hopefully it'll be during a time where school is about to begin and students are coming or school is letting out. And I've asked that we have also school resource officers there, and it's a good continuation of this discussion. So stay tuned for an upcoming workshop, hopefully with the engineer.
Well, not that they've paid attention to us in the past. I'd say, get your voices ready for town meeting, and I assume that there'll have to be a vote for the funding. And thus far, those votes have
there,
not succeeded.
there may not be if they go to the federal government for the funding. So, so.
Thank you.
Jen, may I just ask that if, when we do have that workshop, if we could invite our custodians who are out on the streets every
Yes.
day at the
For
crosswalks?
crossing guards, school resource
Thank you.
officers.
And is it okay if we bring our, signs petitioning no rotary? Well, we
Moving on to hiring
the whole
update.
town.
Does
I
bring
think-
to mind the following question.
This is
If-
not
if
under
I may.
discussion. This is not under
I would like
discussion.
to put on our agenda, on the horizon, a discussion of this, specifically to find out who we contact at the state to make sure they know how we feel. So I'm asking that we put it on a reasonably soon agenda.
So I think this is exactly what Jim was talking about 10 minutes ago when he said that this is a conversation, it's a report by the superintendent, and it went sideways. Okay? So good lesson there for everybody to think about. I do think it's appropriate to put it on a future agenda. I think that is the appropriate request when you have a discussion like this.
Thank you. Hiring update, CPS schedule.
We are still hiring, and I'm going to let Beth talk a little bit about the the schedule. We have been challenged. We're still looking for several TAs across the district. We had a TA at the intermediate school who worked for about a week and then submitted her resignation with no lead time. And so it's a tough market out there. We also have 5 or 6, maybe 5 or 6 teacher and or staff members, not just all teachers, long-term subs that we're filling. So it's a challenging market right now, and I won't even say that any one school is fully staffed, because as soon as I do, an opening occurs. But we continue. We'll be putting out in the newspaper another search for more teaching assistants to fill the positions. I'm going to let Beth lead the discussion or the report on schedules.
Thank you. I'm going to move this. That's okay. So, as you're all well aware, the Cyrus Pierce Middle School schedule has been a challenge at the beginning of this year. I feel that it is important that we don't look back necessarily at all of the reasons why it was a challenge, although they are important and will all be taken into consideration with future scheduling. I do want to focus on areas that we have been looking at very carefully in reconstructing the schedule and in coming to a final schedule that is workable at this point. Still going through some final very small iterations and tweaks. But 3 important areas that we needed to look at as we looked and started building the schedule. One was class size. And the importance of the fact that our grade 6 was 150 students, and looking at how to, with the staff that we had, how to make sure that there was an appropriate amount of time and appropriate scheduling for our core content areas. Looking at and discussing whether 50-minute blocks for with 2 math and 2 ELA blocks, how that would work. And still offer encore opportunities. So these areas were very important. The others that were important were common planning time, making sure that teachers had appropriate time in preparation, and that everything was in place according to the contract. Schedules have gone through several changes. And we appreciate the patience, the work, and the amount of dedication that has gone into getting this schedule up and running. It has been a challenge. As I said earlier to colleagues, we realized that for every action that we try to complete, there is a reaction. So when you think that you are getting closer to finding a solution, you realize that somewhere else something has been affected. So it is a very challenging piece. It's very difficult to put everything together in a kind of a puzzle. But it has. We feel comfortable at this point that we have come to a good working schedule. We have been changing and making sure at this point we believe that we are at almost to the end with some small tweaks, as I said. We have accommodated special education and EL requirements for service delivery to make sure that students are getting exactly what they are supposed to be getting in their IEPs, and also with their English language requirements. We have accommodated a band period that has a shared staff member, and that can be very challenging when schedules don't line up between NHS and CPS, and that's a challenge. And we also are attempting to lower our class sizes so that it's manageable for staff. It is challenging also, again, as you lower one class, another class number goes up. So that is always an important piece to keep in mind. It is important to consider that most school districts in the Commonwealth are still going through some small tweaks and adjustments in their schedules so that students are appropriately placed and staff have adequate planning.
Common planning is important, class sizes. So I, again, want to thank everyone who has been involved with this, and there's been a lot of work that has gone into this in a very short amount of time. Do we understand, do we realize it's not a perfect schedule? Absolutely, and we know we can do much better. We also know that it is, we're in a place right now where we can have and hold some consistency, and we hope that in the very near future that we will be able to look carefully at this current schedule, and I would like to offer the opportunity for a work group, a task force of middle school teachers in order to look at the schedule the way it is and see if we can come up with some potential solutions, possibly for this year, but certainly for next year. And we will make sure that the scheduling for next year begins very soon, so that there's no question that this will not happen again. If anyone has any questions, staff, administration, school committee, I would be welcome to meet with you and go through specifics and provide additional details.
Thank you, Beth.
Just one final piece on that. I think that work with the task force will begin right away. I don't want there to be people thinking that that's not going to start. And I think before we do make any changes, though, and if we do make changes, we have to know that it is ready and perfect. We can't try to make changes either piecemeal or slowly over time. So if we get to a point where it can be improved, and I think it can be, then it's going to have to be rolled out in a timely way with no possibility of saying oops again. So I think that will begin. I think Beth will work with Julie to identify staff members who would be good in that task force. Okay?
By making sure that it's working right, you're talking about eventually getting it to Aspen?
Yes.
So that they can
Yes.
work with us?
Yep.
To make sure it actually works?
Yep.
Okay.
Budget directives draft, I have given the school committee last year's directives and asked for any feedback. That's not for discussion at this point, but I need that feedback, and then I will bring it forward for a vote at a subsequent meeting. The directives change a little bit each year, probably not significantly. And we don't have a budget calendar yet until Libby gives us an idea of some of the dates moving forward.
Do you know whether we're gonna get some of that information on Thursday at that executive session?
The budget calendar?
No.
Well, information from her as to progress with the budget.
I don't believe that executive session is about the budget. That's about collective bargaining.
Okay.
Okay?
And are we going? Jen, are you attending? Do we have to run our own executive session within the executive session?
Our
Or is it
sub,
just bargainers
yes,
who are going?
our negotiation subcommittee is attending.
Okay.
Thank you. Subcommittee work group updates. Safety and security, I'm on that. We have not met yet this year. I'm sure that's coming up soon. Policy, we meet next week to review the CPS handbook. Negotiations, do you want to fill us in on?
Yep, we began negotiations yesterday, and it is a process. We will be meeting every 2 weeks approximately. We meet hour and a half to 2 hours. And I think both negotiating teams have been identified, and I look forward to working with both teams.
Great, thank you. Any other updates?
Just the Student Support Service Committee met today. It was a nice opportunity for me to meet our new social workers at NES and CPS, and this was the first meeting of the school year, so really sort of just everybody reported out on some of the initial challenges that they're identifying, and it was a great discussion, I thought, on strategies on how they can implement support services for our students. So we're on a every other month schedule, and also at that table is also representatives of Gosnold and Fairwinds.
Fantastic.
So,
Thank you very much
And
for
then-
reporting out.
you're welcome. And just the only other one is NET, Nantucket Education Trust, is actually meeting this Thursday, and I'll report out on that at the
Thank
next
you.
meeting.
Thank you very much. Let's see, Joel, do you have any updates for us, or?
Just a couple. So, a week from Thursday, we're holding our first all-school assembly. It's our sports and clubs assembly, so all the clubs of the high school are gonna, their spokesperson, their president will come to the podium and just talk a little bit about what their club is, just to let a lot of the incoming freshmen, and if there's any new clubs, give everyone a refresher on like what those clubs do, just to help kids get involved. There's also a few community service groups, like Breakfast Buddies comes and talks, which is good, gets kids easily accessible community service stuff so they can get involved.
Great, thank you very much. Agenda?
Well, I think the one change from on the horizon, I believe that the MCAS results will be, the embargo will be lifted maybe 24th, 25th of September. So I expect that you will want to move that up to an October presentation, because it will be hitting the newspapers as soon as the embargo is lifted. And it may be that you will do what we have done before, which is have a general report from the central office, and then you may want to have a workshop as we did, so that you can hear from each principal. But that's sort of up to you. If we do MCAS at October 1st, I'm not sure that you want to have community school update and school resource officers. That's a lot for that agenda, so you may want to push one of those two off to the second October meeting. And I can talk to the SROs or Tracy to see which would be appropriate. But I think it'd be a lot to have both of those.
That's a good idea.
Thank you.
And then you'll note that I have the Mass Superintendent's Award that I'm entrusted to hand out each year, and I look forward to doing that at that first October meeting.
Thank you.
And since we're on the horizon, are we gonna put a Rotary discussion
We can put that in the parking
somewhere
lot.
on there?
I've written it down to add. It could be the November meeting but I think it depended on
It depends on
Andrew
our workshop with the
and-
engineer.
because I don't think you want to meet just separately to discuss it. I think you
Oh,
want
yeah. No,
to be there with
I'm
them.
concerned about the timing,
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
so that it's well before the state makes its decision as to whether or not to fund it.
Oh.
So if you can find that out when you meet with the engineer, that'd be great.
Will do.
All
Thank you.
right.
May I just
Sure.
also make a comment
Acknowledgements,
that I
sure.
think non-acknowledgements, just an add to the agenda, just so that we get in the routine of having it on the agenda, is to have something under goals. And I think maybe just starting for the next meeting is just sort of having a discussion on tonight's presentation and how we want to lay out going forward our request for presentations, et cetera. But I think now we've adopted the goals, I think we really need to have some discussion on how we want to manage them and how we determine the success, so we know moving forward.
I think that might be a good topic for a workshop. I feel like that's might be too much to add to an agenda item for a meeting.
I'm good
but
with that.
maybe a workshop to just purposefully discuss.
because actually I like Jim's suggestion. I hadn't thought of this, but if we're allowed to do a consent agenda, I think that that's an excellent idea, because if we're going to add items onto the agenda, what the consent agenda, as I understand it to be, is that you adopt the agenda with certain items, such as all of the items that we had voted, whether it's whatever items you're going to take a vote on, you can put it up along with the minutes, and you can accept the consent agenda as set. And if any of us want to pull something out, for instance, we wanted to talk about the school committee goals, you actually could move that down to the regular agenda and then vote on the agenda as set. So it could save some time on that. The only thing I wouldn't like to do is to lose the opportunity for everybody to understand the tremendous support that we get from our community, because in those multiple donations, that's a wonderful thing. So I wouldn't want to brush that aside, but at the same time, that could help us condense the time and leave more time for discussion. So I'd like to, and then we can do that in the workshop
I
too.
think that's a good discussion for the workshop.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
We'll talk about the consent.
Any acknowledgements, shout outs?
No shout-outs yet.
All right, Steve, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.